Es ist mir eine besondere Freude, heute einen auch ganz besonderen Referenten begrüßen zu können, der mir versicherte, dass nicht er dafür verantwortlich ist, dass heute in Regensburg Temperaturen herrschen, wie sie auch in Ankara nicht alltäglich sind. Dr. Burak Erdenir, der im Ministerium für Europäische Union, für europäische Angelegenheiten der Republik Türkei tätig ist als Unterstaatssekretär, also auch auf das Engste mit den Verhandlungen und Beitrittsbemühungen der Republik Türkei in Bezug auf eine Mitgliedschaft in der Europäischen Union auch befasst ist und genau aus diesem Themenkomplex auch heute zu uns sprechen wird. Ein sehr aktuelles und aufgrund aktueller Vorgänge in der Türkei sicherlich noch aktuelleres Thema. Dr. Erdenir hat einen Bachelor-Degree aus Ankara, dann einen Master oder zwei Master in den USA angeschlossen, einen MBA, Master of Business Administration der Georgetown University und dann auch noch einen Master of Public Administration an der Kennedy School of Government in Harvard, also zwei sehr prominente amerikanische Universitäten. Und hier gibt es sogar dann auch schon eine erste Verbindung zu dem zweiten Teil des heutigen Abends oder spätnachmittags, dem Vortrag von Dr. Gerald Knaus, der nämlich auch in Harvard tätig war als Fellow. Nach den beiden Masters schloss Dr. Erdenir einen PhD in Political Science and Public Administration in Ankara, an der Ankara University auch noch an. Er ist neben seiner politischen oder Regierungstätigkeit auch Autor einer Reihe von Arbeiten, die sich mit Fragen europäischer Identität und wie sich auch die Türkei hier platziert, beschäftigen. Ich erwähne ein Buch, ich erwähne jetzt die deutsche Übersetzung, Europäische Identität vom Pan-Nationalismus zum Postnationalismus. Dr. Erdenir wird auf Englisch sprechen, daher werde ich jetzt auch aufs Englisch wechseln. Dr. Erdenir, it's really a pleasure to be able to welcome you here, and we are all looking forward to what we think will be a very interesting talk about a very important topic, that is the relationship between the Republic of Turkey and the European Union with respect to potential membership of the European Union, and what needs to be done in terms of getting these negotiations out of where they are stuck at the moment. So therefore, you also gave entitled your talk the need of a paradigm shift. Before I give the floor to you, I want to mention that the member of the European Parliament from the Oberpfalz, so our guy in the European Parliament, Ismail Ertug, he would have liked to come. You might know him, Ismail Ertug. He sends his best greetings and his wishes to you and to all of us. Unfortunately, he was unable to come. He had other business to do, but he wishes all of us an interesting evening and an enlightening discussion. So, thanks again for coming, and we are looking forward to your talk.
Thank you, sir. I would like to take my jacket, if it's possible. Professor Brunnbauer, thank you for your introduction. Thank you for your invitation. From the Graduate School for East and Southeast European Studies. I also would like to thank my dear friend Salih Altuner from Regensburg Haber, Regensburg News, which we have been in touch for some years. So we were planning to make this event, but now that it's such a hot topic, Turkey-EU relations, I think he's a good journalist, that he's having this good timing. Well, we still do have a EU ministry in Turkey, fortunately. But I don't know how the things will unfold in the future. Well, before coming today, let me give some background information of how we reached today. We had applied to the European Economic Community back in 1959. More than 50 years ago, Turkey was the second country that had applied to the EEC after Greece, 15 days after the Greek application. 1963 is the date we had signed the Ankara Agreement, which has been 50 years. Now it's the 50th anniversary this year. So we have a very deep relationship with the European Union. We have an Ankara Agreement, which is the association agreement, which foresees full membership. It has a very strong legal basis, I would say, on free movement of people, goods, and other production factors. Well, 70s and 80s, we had some legal arrangements again, some commercial arrangements, tariff barriers were lifted, but still 70s and 80s were not the best times of the relationship. Because of the structural problems of Turkish economy, there was an oil crisis in the world. EU countries were also suffering, and Turkey had applied to full membership in 1987. That was supposed to be a new beginning of a new era, but unfortunately, 2 years later, something happened. The Berlin Wall fell down, and a new kind of geopolitical structure emerged in the continent. And the former communist countries entered into the European Union. At least got in front of us in the line. So it was a whole new game that started after 1989. In 1995, we had established a customs union with the European Union. Turkey was the first one and only country to enter into a customs union with the European Union without becoming a member. That's interesting because Turkey was becoming a part of this economic integration without being a part of the policy-making system. In 1999, Turkey was given the candidate status in the Helsinki Council. 2005, the negotiations started, and then since then we are a negotiating country with the European Union. How are the negotiations going? I think they're not going very well, unfortunately, and I just received some news for the future. I will also be communicating that information. But since the negotiations have been opened, I think you might be knowing the EU acquis communautaire is divided in 35 pieces. Turkey has been able to only open 13 chapters, despite the fact that we had started the negotiations at the same time, the same date with Croatia. They will be becoming members in 15 days' time, on the 1st of July. The rest of the chapters, around 22 chapters, 16, 17 chapters are politically blocked. What does political blockage mean? You need a consensus of each and every member state to open a chapter. Well, we had the Cyprus issue, the Greek Cypriots unilateral blockage, the French unilateral blockage, some reservations by Germany on some issues. So, what does it mean? We, at the time that the negotiations were somehow packed up as a technical process, especially after the 2004 enlargement, with opening benchmarks, closing benchmarks, chapters. We thought that it would be a technical process, but then it turned out to be a political process because Cyprus was in, needing the consensus of each and every member state didn't help us. So what was the outcome? The EU lost its conditionality because, especially in 2005 until 2006, the EU had a strong conditionality. What does conditionality mean? A candidate country is supposed to do something and get something. So it's a give and take process, which has not been happening in the Turkey-EU relations since the 4 or 5 years, I would be saying, unfortunately. So this is the background information. My first point is about the Turkish public opinion, how the people see it, so that we can, have a better understanding for the future of the relationship. Well, let me give you a figure. 92% of the people in Turkey believes that when it comes to Turkish accession, the EU has double standards. And why do they think it? Because, as I mentioned, it has been 50 years. People don't know much about the chapter issues or benchmarks, but they know that we're always waiting at the door of the European Union. It's not very much helping us. The EU says there's an enlargement fatigue. Definitely there's an accession fatigue in Turkey. Another issue, Gerald would be speaking on that, visa issue. Turkey is the only candidate country whose citizens require a visa to enter into EU countries. Back in 1980s, when the visa was introduced for obligation was introduced for Turkish citizens, there was huge number of, in fact, migration from Turkey. In the year of 1980, there were 57,000. Only in that year, there were 57,000 asylum seekers applications to Germany, only to Germany. Right now, it's zero. Reverse migration is happening, but visa is still there. Definitely, it's not helping us. Businessmen want to go invest, go into procurements, bids. Students want to, go for education opportunities. Erasmus students. I mean, this week I had to at least resolve 3 issues of visa applications of 3 students who were going through an Erasmus program. But there's always big issues because they have to go to the consulates. They cannot get their documents back in time. So there's always an issue where we have to intervene. We have friends, diplomat friends, and they're helping us, but it's not the way it should be, of course. Another issue is the Cyprus issue. Since 2004, a new era has started in Turkey relations because Cyprus has entered, the Greek Cypriots have entered as a member, and they're blocking every step of Turkish accession. In fact, resolving the Cyprus issue is not now being implied as a requirement for Turkey to enter into the European Union, whereas it was not a requirement for the Greek Cypriots itself to enter into the European Union. It was not a requirement. And in fact, it's the fact that the Greek Cypriots had said no to a UN-led Annan plan, while the Turkish Cypriots said yes. Well, the outcome was, getting them into the European Union. In an earlier version of the Annan plan, there was a provision saying that saying yes would mean saying yes to membership, saying no would mean saying no to membership as well. But then they changed that final version. So if it was the version, I don't think the Greek Cypriot would say so easily no to the referendum. Well, there's a divided island, like it or not, recognize it or not, but there are 2 states right now on the island, and it's not helping us. One other issue, fight against terrorism. We never had good cooperation with any of the member states, not even single case of extradition of terrorists from big countries, from Germany, from France, from Belgium, from the Netherlands, from some Nordic countries, Scandinavian countries. So people have this conspiracy theories that there's some member states behind PKK. Even they can stretch it to that, those conspiracy theories in Turkey. There was a Roche TV case in Denmark, that TV was sending signals to the PKK terrorists before their attacks, signaling each other. So now it's closed, I think, because it was a long case. But it's, of course, not helping us on that issue. Well, at the end of the day, people ask us, why bother? When the European Union is so much facing with those crises, when the economy is so bad, financial crisis has turned out to be an economic crisis, even social crisis, and when Turkey is doing so good economically, why do we need the European Union is the argument of many Turkish citizens. I don't agree with that argument, but I think it's a fair argument to question this whole process. Well, Turkey is a democracy. Public opinion counts, definitely. We have 3 elections coming. In 2004, we have the local elections, presidential elections, and 2015, we have the presidential elections. So, speaking about or, basing your campaign on the European Union will not help any politician. Politicians know that fact very well. In fact, on the contrary, bashing the European Union gives credit to many politicians in Turkey, unfortunately. Well, that's the Turkish side of the story. What about the European Union side or the European public opinion? Well, I do think that we have a serious image problem. Many reasons: historical, political, religious issues, many prejudices about Turkey, somehow linked to many issues coming from centuries. Even in Regensburg today, we were going out with Salih. There's this statue of Don Juan where he is putting his foot on a Turkish Janissary's head. So this image is in many countries. I don't think it's the main reason why we are pushed away from the European Union. I wouldn't stretch it that far, but I think that might be one of the many reasons. Religion is there. Bad public diplomacy by Turkey for years, for decades, is another reason. There was a movie about Turkey on called Midnight Express. Many of you might have watched it, which have affected the image of Turkey for years, especially in the United States and Western countries. So many other issues. But my main argument is that one of the main reasons of this image problem is the integration problems that we had faced by the communities, by the Turkish communities in Western societies, in EU countries especially. We had sent millions of Turkish workers to, especially to Germany, France, Netherlands, Belgium, and Austria, and they had integration problems. I'm not blaming anyone. I'm not blaming the workers, but that's a fact that integration was not successfully handled. The Turkish government has its own fault because those people were rather perceived as foreign exchange reserves. No integration policies were designed. Same for the host societies, not in Germany, France, or those countries. There were guest workers who were supposed to go back to their homeland, which never happened. It's now the third generation, fourth generation. I know that there are successful integration stories right now, but I mean, there are about 4 or 5 million people. I mean, there should be some success stories for sure. But I think it's not a coincidence that those countries that have highest objection rates against Turkish membership are those countries that have highest Turkish communities, including Germany, France, the Netherlands, Belgium, and Austria. So I think there's a high correlation there. Well, coming to my topic, for need for a paradigm shift, I would like to make my points on why we need a paradigm shift. And I think it's very much, linked, connected of what's going on right now in Turkey. The first reason is Turkey is changing. I mean, Turkey has been changing enormously in this last decade especially. It has been an economic change for sure. I'm not going to go through numbers, but let me just give you a number, a figure that's interesting. Last month we had the third airport bid of Istanbul, which amounted to $40 billion with the investment plus the procurement price. And the same week we had the nuclear power plant deal with the Japanese. It was $30 billion, adding up to $70 billion. $70 billion, two investments in 1 week. $70 billion was the GNP of Turkey in 1985. So it shows how much Turkey has done economically. We have been a high, country, debt incurring country from the IMF. We have wiped off the debt. Now we're in fact contributing to the IMF of $5 billion in the coming year. And this is not only economy. I mean, of course, everything is linked to the economy, but a socio-economic transformation is happening in Turkey. Millions of people have moved into middle class. I think this is very much important of how Turkey is changing. The urban middle class is growing. And in fact, what we are seeing in Turkey right now is that process of Turkey, that the urban middle classes are claiming for their rights and liberties. That is an interesting point to make. And one of a diplomat, an ambassador in Ankara had said, this in fact shows the European identity of Turkey. So he was really surprised to see these events, incidents. Okay, they were unfortunate, but he said, the urban middle class is growing in Turkey and really looking out for their rights and liberties. It's an important point to be made, I think. Well, that socioeconomic transformation is also somehow happening with the democratization, because it's not only Istanbul or Ankara anymore, not big cities, but it's the whole country. Many of the social forces are included in this transformation process, because we have this problem of democracy in Turkey that we had inherited from the Ottomans, I would say, a problematic between the state and the individual. The state has always been in the center of the system. We even call the state the father and mother, devlet ana devlet baba in Turkish, which means that the state decides to give or the state decides to take. But it's never been the citizen that has been challenging the state. So I think it's really important to see that right now the citizens are in display and, they're claiming their rights, liberties. And it's not only these recent incidents. You can see how Anatolia is changing as well. Many other social forces are in play. Well, about democratization, I mean, there are many things that have happened in this country, in Turkey, for the last decade. Many taboos have been discussed. The government is criticized on many issues, but I would say, Kurdish was a taboo. The state TV is broadcasting in Kurdish 24 hours, 7 days. Checks and balances, we have established the Ombudsman Institution, the National Human Rights Institution last year. Things are changing. Civil rights are really expanding in Turkey. Minority rights, that's something that I'm really personally involved in. I'm working with the minority groups in Turkey, especially the Jews, the Armenians, the Greek Orthodox groups. And let me give you an example. Our ministry's office in Istanbul is in Ortaköy. It was a Greek school. It's an ancient Greek school. The building was owned by a Greek community, but then it was taken by the government in the 1920s. And now we are somehow a tenant of the municipality because it's a property of the municipality. Last month, the Foundation Council, which is kind of a semi-independent authority, decided to give this building, return the building from the municipality to the Greek Orthodox Community Foundation. So now that we have to leave the building as a ministry, or we have to pay a rent. We're trying to make a deal with them. I mean, they're going to get some money from us for sure. But it shows that, there is rule of law. These people ask for their rights, and they can get it. And we just learned after the outcome of the process. Well, I'm not saying that Turkey is a perfect democracy. It's changing for sure, and we have to keep in mind that we have been dealing with the PKK terrorist organization for the last 30 years. It's never easy to keep the balance right between freedoms and security. I mean, even the United States right now is having that deal of security is more important than freedoms. They are dealing with this issue on privacy, personal issues. So my first point is that Turkey is changing, and really we have to observe that change in Turkey. My second point is that it's a win-win case, Turkey's EU membership. That we might have problems. We are really observing serious problems at the moment, but it's a win-win case. I do think that, on the contrary to the argument of many Turkish citizens, I do think that the accession process of Turkey would really contribute to the Turkish modernization process, the democratization, the socio-economic transformation of the country, foreign policy, because as long as you have a strong foot with the European Union, you can be a source of inspiration for those Middle Eastern and North African countries. For instance, Morocco had applied to the European Union in 1989. It was rejected on the basis that they were not a European state. Turkey is the only country that can become a part of this union in this region, a Muslim country with that background, somehow representing billions of people. So, I mean, Turkish accession has a different story. It's not like the accession of the Poland, the Polish experience, or the Spanish experience, or the Irish experience. It's totally have a different, meaning, because people are asking us if the European Union is a Christian club. I think that's a really important question to be, posed when we're dealing with many other issues. Well, we do also have some things to offer to the European Union. I'm not going to go to each and every one of them, but of course, Turkey is a dynamic society, becoming a high qualified labor. We have the highest working hours when compared to EU countries. That's an interesting statistics I included in my presentation. Turkey increased its number of researchers more than 100% over the last 8 years. So, keeping in mind the aging problem of many European countries, I was reading in The Economist yesterday that Germany would be losing 6.5 million workers since 2025. And that's the equivalent number of workers in Bavaria right now, 6.5 million workers. So there's definitely a need of different kind of laborship to be transferred to many European countries. Well, being a strong foreign policy actor, definitely the European Union needs Turkey in that sense of having not only the hard power, but the soft power. Madam Ashton of the European Union is almost on weekly basis calling Foreign Minister Davutoğlu on many issues. Access to energy resources, for sure, is another issue. My third point would be on why we need this paradigm shift. Because I think losing Turkey has high costs and implications. And this is a question that has been asked, especially in the last few years, that, if Turkey would be losing this EU anchor, it would not be beneficial for the region, for the future of the region. Well, the EU is criticizing Turkey on many issues, especially in the recent days, on freedom of expression, liberties, individual rights. But the thing is, the EU hasn't been a proper partner, I would say, especially in the last 5 years. We haven't been able to open Chapter 23, for instance, which is on judiciary and fundamental rights, which is the backbone of the political reform process. Yesterday, a member of the European Parliament, Helen Flauter, she openly said that it was a mistake of the European Union not opening Chapter 23 and 24, and now criticizing Turkey on those issues. So I think to avoid to ask that question, who lost Turkey, we need a paradigm shift in the relationship. I know it's not very easy right now, looking at the relationship. And it was never easy, in fact. I mean, whenever we speak about with our European colleagues, they say, these are not the best times for Turkish membership. And their argumentation was, not right now, we're going into single market in the 1990s. Then in 2000 was the the euro issues. In 2004-07, it was the enlargement. Then came the financial issues. And I'm sure right now we have the civil society issues in Turkey that the EU would be really bringing. Because I've been informed today that there are high chances that Chapter 22, which was the chapter that was supposed to be opened by next week on the 26th of June in Brussels, will not be opened because of the German reservation, because of Chancellor Merkel's really high stance, high position on the events in Turkey. But definitely this is not helping the progressive forces in Turkey. Those people who are pro-European Union, but that's high politics, and it's never easy to deal with those high political issues when working in the kitchen, from our perspective. Well, how to attain that paradigm shift? Of course, from a policy-making level, it's the responsibility of the politicians at the end of the day to make that happen. I don't see any kind of hope in that sense. We have been mentioning about the lack of leadership in European Union countries. Germany is right now leading the European Union, but I don't know if the Germans are reluctant or not. You would have that question, you would have that answer for sure. But it seems that politically we're really going to a deadlock in Turkey-EU relations. From bottom up, from a societal perspective, I do have some hopes, because looking, from the perspective of civil society, links between the people of Europeans and Turkish people, I think there are prospects in that sense. Let me give you a figure. Those Europeans who have visited Turkey, 70% of them support Turkish membership, while it's only 30% support among those who have not visited Turkey. So it shows that as people visit Turkey, as there's contact between societies, support to Turkish membership increases, which is an important point to be made. Well, we're not a very open society, I would say. Only 10% of the Turkish population has passports, which is a very low number. But I do have, some optimism for the future, because I can see that those civil society links are increasing with the help of social media. Of course, it's another factor that would be increasing with, opportunities between societies. Erasmus is a good example. Last year, we had sent 55,000 Turkish citizens to EU countries from 1 week to 1 year opportunities. So I think we have opportunities in the future that we could be increasing the links between societies. And it's simple social psychology at the end of the day. As people get in touch with each other, as increasing contacts emerge, prejudices somehow fall, and there will be prospects. There are tens of thousands of German citizens living in Turkey. They're buying properties. They're living their best times of their lives, their retirement ages in Turkey. So it shows that there's an integration possibility. I mean, if they're doing this, with their own will, I think it shows kind of a prospect for the future. So let's see. I mean, what the time will show us. Let me stop here, and I'll try to get your questions and answers. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Erdenir, for this informative and very concise talk. You concluded with some remarks concerning that there is place for optimism, although the overall tone of your talk gave rather reason for pessimism. So before I give the floor to the audience, I would like to pose two questions. One concerning the position of Turkey or the Turkish government vis-à-vis European Union membership or non-membership, and the other one, how you would explain the high degree of opposition against membership of Turkey, especially in the countries that you mentioned. So the first question would be, when do you think will be the point reached when the government of Turkey says, okay, that's enough, we can live a happy life also outside of the European Union? There are a couple of European countries who are doing well outside of the European Union, so why should we bother to wait for the opening of negotiation chapters which are not opened? So, and the second question would be, what do you think that opposition against the accession of Turkey to the European Union in Germany, in France, which are probably still the major European Union countries, is caused mainly by the fear of governments to lose elections because of popular opposition, or because of a lack of strategic thinking? Or is there any third reason that we don't know?
Well, thank you for these questions. For the first one, you know, before last 2 weeks, I would say, our European colleagues were saying, look, you know, things are going better because the French had lifted a blockage on a chapter, and we would be able to open a chapter, which is this chapter 22, after 2.5 years. That would be, in fact, the third year. And next year, next presidency, the Lithuanian presidency, there will be prospects for opening another chapter, chapter 17. So, you know, the mindset was opening one chapter per presidency. We have 22 chapters to open. It means 11 years only for opening chapters. And no politicians would wait 11 years to open chapters, because then you have to close them, and then you have to take it to a referendum. And Prime Minister Erdogan some months ago said 2023 was a deadline in his mind. I mean, I don't know what he meant. He has his political messages. But he said membership should have happened before 2023. Well, as a person living in the kitchen, it's not easy to make a forecast. But I can see that, you know, Turkey is losing its patience for sure. And coming to today, after those, you know, after these events, the statements from the European Parliament especially really got some reaction from the Turkish government. Prime Minister Erdogan was had some hard reactions to the resolution of the European Parliament, recent EP resolution. And right now, because of the reservation of Germany and the Netherlands, I think, because it's not for sure, by the way, but the chances are high because there was a Coreper meeting today in Brussels, then chapter would not be opened. If the chapter is not opened, for instance, we had the Joint Parliamentary Committee meeting next week in Brussels, it will be cancelled. So, you know, it will have a domino effect, and believe me, it will be a relationship that would be suspended de facto. Not legally, because legally to suspend the relationship, you need a consensus of each and every member state. But Turkey can withdraw, because in 1997, when we hadn't had the chance to be part of those 12 countries, and the government of then decided not to go into any of the council meetings. And in 1999, thanks to the Schröder government, Turkey was back into the game. But at this moment, if the negotiations stop, literally stop, I don't know how we can overcome that problem. There are many issues which we can discuss, but I'm working in the EU business, I would say. So from the EU perspective, the position of the EU has never helped us, especially those chapters that I have mentioned, 23 and 24. I was leading the Turkish team in chapter 23, and we were kind of, I was asking my friends, I was kind of begging them, look, we have to open this chapter. If you want to bash us on, human rights, minority rights, freedom of expression, journalists, then open this chapter and let's negotiate it. I'm not a politician, I'm a bureaucrat, but if you really want to honestly discuss these issues, why don't we open it? You know why can't we open it? It's because there's a veto by the Greek Cypriots. And you know why they have the veto? It's because they say there are human rights violations in Northern Cyprus. Northern Cyprus is not in the jurisdiction of the Turkish Republic. But, many EU countries, especially those big players, are very comfortable hiding behind the Helfan Island. I'm sorry to say this, but this is a fact. And, if the Cyprus issue would be resolved, I'm sure there would be another reasoning to hide behind. Because it was before Cyprus, it was Greece. Now Greece has changed its position, but it's not definitely helping us. Helping us means those people who believe in the European Union, pro-EU people. And I know that there are many European colleagues from the European Union who do support our argumentation. We are in touch with them on a daily basis. And they're not happy. I'm not happy that this chapter will not be opened because it will be having implications on not only Turkey relations, but also in the Turkish economy. Because there are investors, foreign investors looking to the Turkish market, if it's becoming a high-risk market or not. So I'm really not happy of this situation. Well, coming to your second question, I think that's a very important question because it's about leadership, political leadership in many European countries. Do leaders or politicians think about next generations or next elections? That famous dilemma is there. Right now, I know that the European Union countries are dealing with many issues, existential issues, I would say. Germany is the first time right now leading the European Union, I would say reluctantly. It needs, really big responsibility. But the question is, should the leaders be following the people or should they be leading them? Otherwise, immigrants are bad, Muslims are bad, there are always scapegoats in the communities, employment is high, excluding Germany. But, then it's fine to, get the votes of the far right, or at least try to get the votes of the far right, and not have a new discourse on Turkey-EU accession. Well, it's not an easy one. I think this could be resolved in the long term. So that was my, ending of my presentation, my little optimistic part that, there will be links between civil societies, and that's why I had mentioned these events in Istanbul or in Ankara, the civil unrest. Was about the urban, middle class somehow growing, and it's showing the European identity, unless they resort to violence, of course. So, increasing the links between society definitely would be, because changing the image of Turkey is so important. Turkey has an image problem for sure, and restoring that image problem would only be happening by having people personally experience Turkey.
Favor of Turkish EU accession, but still I want to stress two questions, or address two questions to you, which might be where I would see that the Turkish side is doing less than it could. How would you, for the first part, how would you think that the EU should react to statements like taking into consideration the use of military against civil unrest, as you said? You said civil unrest, and you demonstrated the good parts of it. But as some parts of the government said that they would consider military force against them, how should Europe react to that? That's certainly beyond any limit of political culture and within the EU as late as we consider it usually. And the second one is, this subcontext of religious associations and minority rights, generally I would think that the position of the Christian minorities in Turkey is not considered as being of particular importance in most of the European countries, but in some it is probably. And as you said that you're dealing with those questions too, why isn't it just possible for Turkey to be more generous to its tiny Greek minority in Istanbul? The position of the patriarchate there is really desperate in a way, with Halki still being closed. And when you are in Istanbul as a foreigner, and I was with this tiny group twice, it does leave a very sad, just a sad impression upon you. So couldn't Turkey be just a little bit more in the offense in the way of minority rights in this respect?
Thank you so much for these questions. Why? About that statement, there have been many statements in the last 10 years. I mean, it's really incredible to try to catch up with each and every one of them. I think that was a statement by Deputy Prime Minister Arınç. He also apologized for what had happened, Mr. Arınç, 1 week ago. Something that happened in Istanbul, especially because I personally went to Taksim as well, to that the Gezi Park, to observe it, and it was like people trying to make their points on many issues, but there are also marginal groups. Marginal group would be meaning the PKK itself was there, for instance. They had the flags of Abdullah Öcalan, the leader of PKK. Believe me, they wouldn't be able to do it in a regular street in Turkey because, we have lost around 30,000 people in the last 30 years. People have so much reaction against the PKK. It's like the Osama bin Laden of the United States, I would say. I mean, if you cannot have the flag of Osama bin Laden in Minnesota, think it that way. So the government at some point had to, react, and that's why they decided to make this operation to the square. And after that operation, and the government had a point. They said, "Can you imagine Trafalgar Square in London being occupied for 15 days, or the Times Square in New York being occupied for 15 days?" None of those governments would let that happen. And at some point, President Gül said, the message is taken. Prime Minister Erdogan had a meeting with the protesters' representatives, with the artists, somehow representing them, and they say, and his point was, okay, if this park is going to be going through a redevelopment plan, we can take it to referendum, to a plebiscite, was his point. After of course, there will be there's a court case ongoing, and there will be a case decision on it. So there were provocations, unfortunately. I mean, this is inevitable at some point. It was a complicated case at some point. At the beginning, it was people had made their points through their protests, through social media. I mean, people were having fun. I mean, at some point, even yesterday, this guy started to stand in front of this Atatürk Kültür Merkezi in Taksim Square. He stood up for 6 hours as a way of protesting things, and people joined him. People continue to stand up, and right now I think it's 8 p.m. People are standing up for 5 minutes in many cities in Turkey. So they're showing their protest somehow. But at some point, provoking those events somehow, spread out through the city. And people, blocked this bridge, the Bosphorus Bridge. I don't know if you have been to Istanbul. I mean, blocking the Bosphorus Bridge is something. I mean, this is something I really would never, thought about. That happened twice, in fact. I think it was a statement rather made on, if things are getting out of control, we have to put things in order. That's the only thing I can say about that statement. I don't know what was underlying in the message. This government has been the government to keep the military, the army from politics. And believe it or not, if this thing had happened 10 years ago, the army would somehow be justified to intervene into these events. And one positive thing I think had happened in Turkey in these last 2 weeks is that the army was out, which is really important, because in any kind of civil movement there was always at least a look from the people to the army: when are you going to come and help us? It's no more. This is definitely was a civilian thing. At some point it was civilian, then it became an unrest, then other groups included and involved, and it kind of became complicated. So on the contrary, it was this government who put the army out of this whole game. So why should the government ask for the army come in? That's the only justification I can make. And it's a political statement at the end of the day. I mean, that is all I can, as a bureaucrat, comment on that issue. Well, coming to your second point on the minority issue, I mean, it would really be unfair to still criticize Turkey on minority issues, because I'm working with the representative of the minorities, who is a Greek Orthodox himself, like Ivingas, a good friend of mine from Istanbul. He is a part of the Greek Orthodox community, but he is also taking care of the issues of the Armenians, of Jews, the Syriac people, any minorities you would be thinking about. And this is happening step by step. You cannot resolve everything overnight. I mean, the property issue was a big deal. Around properties amounting to $2 billion have been returned to their rightful owners in the last 2 years. I think that's an incredible thing. They apply, the foundations apply through a fair system. Their applications are analyzed. This foundation's council is, taking care of where the representative of the minorities are there. And if those properties are not sold to third parties, because if it is sold to a third party, it's impossible to trace it back. Those properties are returned to those rightful owners. On education issues, for instance, for the first time after decades, a school is being opened in Gökçeada, a Greek school. This is a success of Lucky and his team and the Turkish government. I mean, because we work together with the Ministry of National Education. It was a big deal because there are like only 10, 15 people living in Gökçeada right now. There is a building of the Patriarch in Büyükada, in another island. There was a court case. The government decided to return it. The Halki Seminary School is still an outstanding issue. Believe it or not, that's an issue which is on the agenda of the government. We have a reform monitoring group composed of 4 ministers: Justice, Interior, Foreign Minister, and the EU Minister. We had a meeting on Saturday, and we also discussed this issue. Because the government wants to resolve this issue, but believe me, when there is a step taken on minority issues in Turkey, people ask, so what happened to the Turkish minority in Greece? Did they get anything? They don't even have a single mosque in Athens.
That's a little bit of different.
Yeah, but reciprocity has been always there. But what this government has tried to do was to leave that reciprocity perspective, but bring a perspective of citizenship. The government says, these guys are our citizens. I don't care what the Greek government is doing, but I have to take care of my citizens. And I think that is an important, shift in policy making. And I mean, if there was a list, I think that this would be a top item that I would be putting in that list, the minority issues that, really we had progress in. Because, as I mentioned, this is happening step by step, progressively. You cannot do everything overnight. And the Patriarch, I mean, I saw Bartolomeo a month ago in the airport, and he's really happy of what's going on in Turkey. Personally, he's happy. I hope unfortunate incidents in the 1940s, 50s hadn't happened, and we had a higher community of minorities in Turkey, because it's a very few, as you said, because it only reflects the diversity of the Turkish society.
My question is about Turkish-Armenian relationships. I know it's very difficult to imagine EU member country that have a close border with its neighbor countries, in this case with Armenia, and that can't handle with his past, in this case with Armenian genocide. And my question is, in your opinion, which direction is this relationship going?
With Armenia, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the Armenia issue has a Azerbaijani dimension. You know, Armenia had occupied some parts of Azerbaijan, and Azerbaijan is somehow a close ally of Turkey. But, you know, especially on the incidents of 1915, Turkey had made an offer to the Armenian government saying, let's go and open our archives to historians. Let's make this thing out of politics and, you know, let the historians go through the archives and try to, you know, come up with facts rather than make it, you know, politicized so much. The Armenian government did not react to the offer of Turkey. They didn't want to open the archives. I mean, the Armenian identity is so much based on hostility on Turkish identity or Turkey. I don't know if the Armenians are really honest of resolving this issue, because it would really have a, you know, impact on the identity of the Armenians in that sense. Turkey is really positive in that. I mean, the Prime Minister Erdogan many times said we are ready to face history. We want to look into future. There are around more than 50,000 Armenian citizens living in Istanbul. I don't know if you know it. They're working, and they're illegally working, by the way. I mean, I don't know if it's the right thing to do, but the Turkish government is somehow letting them to do so because they are in need. It's a deadlocked country. Armenia has big issues. And what I would, I perceive from this whole thing is that we should be distinguish between Armenia and the Armenian diaspora. This is really important, because I don't know if the Armenian diaspora is really so much taking care of Armenia itself. But Armenians are our neighbors. We have lived together for centuries, and we do have a respect. So, and it's an issue of the neighborhood that could be resolved. But, whenever we try to take a step with the border issue, for instance, we want to take a step taken. We want the parties to take a step on the Azerbaijan-Armenian issue, the Karabakh issue. The Karabakh issue is a big issue, outstanding, and that is a national issue in Turkey. People are really sensitive on the issues of Azerbaijan. I'm not an expert on that issue, on Karabakh issue, on the Azerbaijani relations, but definitely on the 1915 incidents, I would say we need to change this, status quo. It's not helping, but we're still waiting the response of the Armenian government on our proposal. It was again linked to this Azerbaijani thing, But there should be an opening if we could resolve this 1915 incidents by opening the archives, because Turkey was ready to discuss issues. It's not helping Turkey, believe me. The status quo is not helping Turkey, because Turkey is the one blamed on this issue. The Turkish society is blamed on this issue. The Turkish government is blamed on this issue, which I think is unfair. I mean, in Boston, I studied in Boston for a while, and Armenia has the highest diaspora in Boston, so it's a main issue there. You have to cover yourself on this issue. I studied it, and there are many different perspectives of this story that we should be discussing. It's not only a one-sided story, and asking Turkey to apologize is such a simple, way of solving things. Simple way, I would say, quote to quote, which never would happen, because the Turkish society does not think that Turkey is the only one to be blamed. We accept that unfortunate things that happened in 1915, for sure. Kurds were included, Armenians were included, Turkish people were included. I don't know if you have been to Kars, for instance. People of Kars believe that they had been, massacred by the Armenians. they themselves have their stories. You know, we have to look to the future.
Okay, thank you. I think we should leave the Q&A session now here, and we will have then after Gerald's talk and the discussion of his talk, we can come back to some of these major political issues after we have listened to another perspective from an analyst who will present a comparative view comparing developments in Turkey and Serbia. Thanks again for your talk and also the interesting discussion. I think what has really become clear, which is not so surprising, that everything is really very complex, and therefore it's really good to hear all sides that are involved in those complex problems.